And we are live. Welcome, welcome, and welcome. This is our second Q&A for the Holistic Dog Summit. I'm so glad you're here. We had really nice conversations yesterday evening. I had Dr. Jeff Feynman back on. We discussed a few other topics, and then he and I just went back and forth and answered questions for you. So I want to do it a little bit differently today. But actually, first, let me do a little bit of a breakdown here. Today, we have on the agenda, you will have hopefully seen some of these videos. Where's my little list? Here it is. So hopefully you listened to Dr. Isla Fishburne. She's wonderful. Her technique, her shamanic technique is so brilliant. And if you didn't quite understand it all, it's very it's out of the left brain, it's right brain. Go back and listen to that, and especially the part where she does that light language, and let that just kind of come into you. It's such a healing vibration. I've gotten a lot of comments about that, and it's so powerfully healing. So make sure you kind of, you have to kind of sit with that, but not in your left brain. Just maybe turn off the distractions, just sit down quietly and listen to her 5-minute light language. And then, of course, we had a conversation with Dr. Susan Wagner. She's our board certified neurologist, and we talked about the oscillation vibrations and negative oscillations as well as positive, based on Nikola Tesla's work. And that was great fun. We also talked about the endocannabinoid system. So many of you are using CBDs for your animals. I know I am. And so it's really good to understand what a fantastic balancing system the endocannabinoids products can do for our pets. And then Dr. Mark Beckoff, he's such a favorite of mine. I never knew him before this, but he was so generous because he has such a love for dogs that he wanted to come on and share some of his insights. So that was really quite fun. And then my dear friend, Dr. Cheryl Swartz, she's an energy worker extraordinaire. She has been in the biz for 44 years, has taught many holistic veterinarians that are out there. She's an amazing teacher and an amazing healer. So I do hope you'll listen to her. She's a wild woman and just one of my role models because she is just bold and wonderful. And then my dear friend, Rita Hogan. Again, I get to talk to all of my dear friends. I'm so lucky. And there's so many more out there that are actually watching today. Rita Hogan is a canine herbalist, and she talks about the vagus nerve and the vibration of the vagus nerve and the importance that the vagus nerve is kind of the master highway into the brain, from the gut into the brain, and can really either hurt or support overall balance and health, especially emotionally. So that was kind of our rundown for today. If you haven't had a chance to listen to all those, I do hope you will. And it's free. So anyway, okay. So what I'd like to do today is something a little bit differently. I'm going to ask you all the questions. Here's what I'd like. Rather than answering all the questions about, allergies or, what to brush your dog's teeth with or something like that, which are very important. I'm not saying they aren't important, but because we have so limited time here, what I'd really like to do is have you all, if you can for me, tell me in like a sentence or a very short little thing, what you've learned in the last 2 days. What, like anything. It can be anything. I'd like to know what you've learned. So that's my question, is just put it in the chat. And it doesn't matter that you have, it's something, maybe it's a reinforcement of what you've already learned, maybe in the past, in your endeavors, but something that that kind of tells me, here's what I'm wanting to do. I want to know that you are understanding my intention here, or that I was good enough at bringing in the kind of speakers. I don't mean praise I mean just that I'm helping you as a teacher, as a facilitator, to help you understand what I think are really the fundamental concepts for holism and holistic health. So you let me know right now if you can, in whatever way you can, and I'll make sure that we kind of go through that for a minute. I like Natalie says, I learned to calm myself. To take care of self is care for your pup. Absolutely. Um, and of course, Bill, we know you've been associated with this for decades, and now it's transitioning into today's medicine. I agree. We have to keep it going. This has to become mainstream, not back, but absolute mainstream. And I'm so glad that some of you have support. You have holistic practitioners, but not everybody does. So that's one of the reasons we're here. Let's see, who else? Let's see. You like to, oh yes, spiritual sense specialties. That was a good one that Dr. Wagner spoke about. It's really important. That was really quite beautiful. Let's see, what do we have here? Yeah, I've enjoyed the talk by Susan Wagner. She spoke about spiritual specialties. It wasn't a foreign concept to me, but she presented it beautifully. I do have a question, though. I was wondering about special is for shame. I think so. I mean, I'm not an expert in that field, that's for sure. But from what I understand, I think that's true. I think you can have good or bad. From what I understood about our interview, that's correct. You can have both. You can be specialized in shame and specialized in empathy, specialized in love, specialized in anything. So, and I love what Able Community Chicago says about worrying less, and Ray Monet, trust your gut. Absolutely. This is just so important. I see this all the time. There were some comments in the Facebook, a woman that was talking about her dog and her husband who wanted to feed the dry food. And you might want to take a look at my comments in there. But the dog was saying, not so much. And she was saying, no, I don't really want to feed him that. But the husband was really worried and wanted to make sure the dogs were getting a complete balanced diet. And so he was thinking that there was only one way to do that, and that was by adding kibble to the food. So not necessarily. So I did make quite a few comments in here, and we won't hold that for now, but listening to her, you could tell she was really on that verge. I can't remember who it was. If it's somebody here, I forgot. But listening to yourself, listening to your dog when they say, not so much. Okay, let's see. I know about medicine mushrooms, but Tremelia is a new one to me. Would love to know its energetics. Okay, can we hang on that just a little bit, if that's okay, Carol? Just because I want to make sure we're getting some of this. Okay, let's see. Good. We've got reinforcement, validation, and your Zana is a holistic coach for dogs and people. That's great. I'm really glad. That's what we want. Good for you. What else do I have here? All right. Twinkles, the kitten. I knew diet was, I love that name. I knew diet was important for my dog, but didn't know how energy would affect the food I make. I still have my cold, so bear with me. Okay. Keep in mind when cooking for, yeah. So I do think, everything has energy, right? And everything has energy. The table has energy, everything. Our emotions are energetic. I used to have for many years, most of you don't know this, but I used to have a restaurant for many years. It was a cafe and a bakery. And I used to have a sign up in the kitchen that said, attitudes are contagious, so have a good one. And because there's a lot of times we get frustrated, everything's crazy in a restaurant and stuff. And I used to have a nail at the back of the door where everybody came in by the time clock. And I would say, that's where you leave your problems. They'll be there when you come out. Don't worry. But right now we're focusing on feeding people. We're focusing on giving them service. We're focused on really providing something for them, an enjoyment, an experience, a nurturing experience. And when you come in and you bring your negativity, let's put it that way, your problems with it, that goes into the food that you're preparing. And I think that helped a lot of the employees, because then they did kind of get time away, maybe an 8-hour shift away from their problems. And sometimes after they'd get out, then, the solutions would already be available to them. And so that really is critical when you are making the food, that you absolutely know your love is the first ingredient at the top. And once you see how happy your animals are to eat it, then it's very easy to put that love in, to pull that food out of the fridge that you've just made special for them, and warm it up and watch them devour it. You absolutely know you're doing the right thing. So I'm right there with you. All right, let's see what else. Terry's learned about gut health. My dog's ears have perked up and looked at the phone the entire time Dr. Fishburne was doing her light talking. Yeah, exactly. They know what that is. What she was doing there is what they call in shamanism, just because we put terms on these things, the induction, the shamanic induction. She was creating an energetic field. And that's what the shamans do in traditional cultures. And I mean traditional. I don't mean Western cultures. I mean traditional cultures of native peoples. And what they do is create the space energetically so that healing can occur. There's many ways to do that. And what they do is they do it with drumming and rattles and chanting songs. And she was doing it in that particular way with the language. And that's why I experienced it so deeply, because I can go there pretty quickly because I've had a lot of shamanic experience. So for me, it took me right into that place. And so that's why I want you to listen to it again if you're not experienced in that, because it's pretty cool and your animals are telling you. Very cool. So anyway, let's see. All right. I put Laura's comment up, please. Little guy behind the screen, little Oz. There, thank you. This helped me to continue learning to be able to stand my ground when I'm forced to deal with allopathic medicine. Bingo. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bath, right? Because there are many times when we need allopathy, but often it's not for preventative medicine. And if it's for chronic disease treatment, then you have to be very careful, because many of our animals and our people end up being on polypharmacy, which really affects and changes the chemistry of the body. But I love what you're saying in there, because if nothing else, just to be able to say, I need to take a break. Let me call you back. Let me think about this and I'll get back. I'll bring my dog back tomorrow, or whatever it is that is going on for you, and a lot of times it is the veterinarians, because they're in their own standard allopathic training. They feel very strongly about what they're doing. And so they're going to make sure to say very strongly, you need another vaccine. You have to do this antibiotic. You got to do this steroid, and if you just say, I need to get more options, just say, I need a second opinion, whatever it is. But to be able to stand back and say that for yourself, this is exactly one of the things I wanted you to get out of this summit. So I'm grateful that one person anyway feels stronger that way. I'm really grateful, because I see this, like, I can't tell you, all the time, where you go into a veterinary clinic or any other place, that's not your place. There is an energetic, I'm going to say this in another way too. There's an energetic field that in that facility. When you go into a hospital, you feel that energetic field, and it's usually not comfortable. Who wants to be in a hospital? You're there because one of your beloveds is sick, and you, of course, don't want that. Unless you work there, you don't really want to be there all the time. So when you go there, it is not your day-to-day world. So you're out of your box. That's out of your realm, your comfort zone. So what can happen is, because the authority figures have information that and you're frightened because you've just been given a diagnosis, your animal has this, and you're frightened and you're not educated. You're not educated, or you're not a vet. This is what people always say, I'm not a vet, so how do I not know that? Then, so you see, you're already sort of sunk right there. You're in a place that's not your home, right? You're in a situation that maybe is quite scary because your animal might just have gotten a diagnosis. And then there's an authority figure. So to be able to stand up against that is a difficult thing for anybody. So for you to be able to say, I just need to, I need to take notes here on what you would like to do, and I need to talk with someone about this, or I need to get a second opinion, or I need to, whatever, just, talk to your community, get on Facebook, get that second opinion, talk to your spouse, get into a quiet place, do a meditation about what you think is right for your dog. Don't jump the gun. Find out, if you have to really, if there is a need to do something imminently, then you are maybe in a very different place, and then you make your best decision you can. But if you have time, then take your time and make sure that you have checked in with yourself and that you're in integrity with the way that you want to raise your dog or your cat or whatever, that you feel good about that. We don't always have those kind of choices that we like. We don't always have the opportunity to say, yeah, I want this to go just this way. And sometimes we do have to use antibiotics or steroids or things that we might not normally want to do. But you want to make sure that you're in alignment with it. And so anyway, so thank you for that comment. I love that. What else have we got? Yeah, we're not really authority figures. I mean, we're just people. We have some education, let's see. I like Donna says, yeah, that's the biggest rub when the vet says, you're not a vet. Meaning that how could you possibly, the pet parent possibly knows. It takes a lot of grace to navigate that conversation and stand your ground. And that's true. And they're trying to do the best they can for your animal. And that is what they know, with limitations, because that medical model is very limited. It doesn't take into the fact that we are energetic beings, that we're spiritual beings, that we, because it's just basically on drugs and some variations of that. It's not a complete system at all. And that's why it's not working for many of us. So no, you're absolutely right. But and I think a lot of people, what I find is, to be able to ask your vet, will you be on my team? Will you help? I am a believer in holistic medicine, and I study it, and you might even consult with a holistic vet. But I'd really like for you to be on my team, because I really value your resources. I value your knowledge, and I absolutely, value what this clinic offers. So ask them to join you, to not be, and then also tell them, these can be scary times. So I might ask for second opinions. I might ask, for you to talk to my holistic vet or anything like this. And once I get on the line with veterinarians, then, we have a professional courtesy that we usually give each other quite a bit of space. And I don't get on the phone and say, why are you doing that to this dog? I say, now, what are you thinking? And tell me what are you observing? Because I do a lot of phone consults, so I have clients all over, and I'm not the hands-on vet. So if you kind of approach it that way, a lot of times it works. And the other thing I've noticed is the veterinarians are often really happy to have other veterinarians working on the case. So they're often very happy once you let them in and tell them, I've got a team here. And again, I'm so grateful for what you're doing and how you can help. But I do have a team. And a lot of times, the people that are not so ego bound are just say, great, I'm so happy. Whatever you're doing, it's working. Because I can tell you, they are stressed out of their minds. They are, bumper to bumper clients. Again, the level of chronic disease is skyrocketing. Much of this is created, unfortunately, within their own clinics. They don't know how to handle all of these allergy situations. They don't know how to handle all these cancer situations. It's just endless. It's endless. And it's so important that you realize they are people too. And I'm sure you all know that right now, veterinarians have a very high suicide rate. I think it's because, and I think I might have spoken with somebody on the summit, one of my interviewees. I think part of that is because they're really struggling with the profession on a very deep sort of spiritual level. And so you might, have understand that. Now, I also have to you have to put your foot down when you think that you're not being treated well because you don't want vaccines or you don't want heartworm pesticides or you don't want something like that, and you get ridiculed or the front desk person is clearly not happy. These are still, and you maybe just need to find another clinic. If you're being treated that way, you need to find another clinic. And often, it is the front desk person who's the most aggressive about these things. They're kind of, I don't know, they're sort of trained that way sometimes, but they also sort of self-select for a personality that, kind of creates boundaries and barriers around the veterinarians so that they can just keep doing their work and not, get too scattered with lots of heavy duty questions and stuff. Excuse me. So just remember that if you're not getting anywhere with the receptionist, especially if the first thing they ask you is the dog vaccinated, and it's the first thing, you can't come in if the dog isn't vaccinated, then I would suggest if it's some clinic you've been there for a long time, just say that. I've been coming to this clinic for 10 years. I brought all my animals here, and I'd really like to talk to the vet about this. Can I do that first before I just need 5 minutes of his or her time? And explain that to them. And if you and your reasons, and tell them you're getting educated and you feel strongly about whatever topic it is. It's not like you just all of a sudden decided, here I'm going to be a thorn in your saddle. And a lot of times it is about vaccines because veterinarians know there's a lot of us that have been educating about vaccines. And so they're quite aware of the pushback, which is good because it needs to be an area that's really reevaluated completely. So if you're really able to talk to the vet and say, here's what I need. If this clinic isn't able to offer it, just thank you. Wish them well. Peace be with you. And, and then find harmony and peace and, call in from the universe something better for you and your animal. Just call in something. Just keep looking until you find something that really resonates with your heart and the people that really feel good to you, that your dog and your cat like, people that, that just, and when you walk into that clinic, if it feels different, you're going to know you're in the right place. And do not worry if it's just an allopathic clinic and they have nothing else going on there holistic, because often that's totally fine. It's more their attitude, their love, how they feel about their work they're doing. That's what's important. And then how to navigate and to, again, use the best of their skills. And then find your other things you need from your support groups or your holistic vet or however. That to me is the most important. I tell people, look, you don't need your allopathic vet to be able to explain, I don't know, detox protocols or from the vaccines, or how to work with slippery elm for diarrhea. You don't need that. You just need them to do basic diagnostics, basic hands-on. Let's make sure there's nothing going on in those eyes. And if you need a good specialist, you need to look at them. Okay, let's do that. But you don't need one clinic to be everything for you. And even holistic clinics don't have everything. So please, trust yourself, and then try to find your way through this in a way that is peaceful for you and harmony for everywhere. Okay, Lisa says, it's important to adjust expectations to holistic approach takes way more time and patience. It does. It does, and it doesn't. Don't you think, Lisa? I mean, you can, because that's kind of that's a little bit of assumption that situations, let me put it this way. I'm going to assume that what you're talking about mostly is chronic disease, because with chronic disease, it's often, yes, I agree, Donna. That's exactly what I was going to say. In acute situations, it's way faster, especially if you're using homeopathy. If you're in a chronic situation, it can take longer. But depending on how long the situation has been going on, yeah, it's going to take longer because you probably have multiple layers of things to deal with. Say, for example, a dog that's had skin conditions for years, has been on Apoquel, been on steroids. That's not going to turn around fast. It didn't. And if it got suppressed, then, and on steroids, Apoquel, then you have to deal with that whole thing too. But there really isn't necessary that holistic healing should take longer. It depends on how long the situation has gone on. That's really the big deal. But when you consider how powerful, let me just say another caveat. But when you consider how powerful the allopathic medications are, and they're very powerful compared to natural vital medicines, which are very soft and very mild, even the highest potency of a homeopathic remedy or the highest strength of an herbal combination. When you consider how powerful allopathic medications are, you get those immediate responses that we're used to in this culture. We like that fast, quick, he's got a deal, let's deal with it, get it under control, it's over with. That's, unfortunately, that doesn't always work. And many of you know that, or you wouldn't be here. But because there aren't any hard and fast rules about that, you have to, again, feel your way through it. But don't give up because something is taking longer. It might actually mean that you're actually getting to the deeper levels of issues. I saw a bunch of comments about allergies on Facebook. And the problem I see there is we have this word we use, allergies, and it really doesn't mean anything except for a histamine release, an inflammatory response. That's it. But it's been like, now people think, well, it's allergies. It must be to the food, or it's something in the house, or it's something at the park. And instead of really looking, again, deeper at the terrain that we talked about with Dr. Jeff last night, deeper into the terrain, what is the imbalance in there that's created this inflammatory response that's going on, that the poor animal can't eat chicken, or the cat can't eat pork, or without having inflammatory bowel flare up, or these are the things that, yeah, maybe the food is tainted and that should make you sick. But otherwise, if not, you really want to think about, why is there so much allergies? Why is everybody talking about that all the time? Why is there so much IBS? Why is there so much hip dysplasia? Why are all the dogs having cruciate repairs? Why are the vets making so much money on the expensive, really difficult surgery? So you see, That's where I want you to be thinking. I don't want you to be, I'm old enough now that I have seen enough dogs years ago and enough disease years ago that that we're not there. Actually, the diseases that we're seeing now, we're not there to that degree. I remember, I know this is a cat thing, but we got cat people here too. When I first got out of vet school, hyperthyroidism was not even existent. And people said, they always say this anytime something kind of comes up into an epidemic, sort of, and I mean that loosely, meaning that it's just out there a lot. We're seeing it a lot. But it wasn't that we never recognized it, because they often say, well, we didn't recognize it. That's not true. It's very easy to recognize hyperthyroidism dogs, or cruciate, say fractured cruciates, or hip dysplasia. And now we're seeing these things in epidemic proportions. So more important to look at why, what have we done different? And that was my mission from years ago. Why is there, what has changed so much in the course of my 42 years as a vet that has made these animals more compromised, more ill? That's my concern. That's why I'm doing this summit, because I want you to be able to go along this journey with me so we understand together. So we're looking back retroactively, right? A good epidemiologist is going to do that. A good scientist is going to do that. Many of you tell me when we had dogs as kids, they lived to be 20, and we didn't take them to the vet all the time. Many of you tell me when we had cats, they were inside, they were outside, they were eating mice because that's what they do so well. They lived to be 25, 30. Many of you have told me these kind of stories. Absolutely. And I experienced it as a kid too. So we have to take responsibility. What are we opting in for? You always hear that from me because I'm always talking about it. What are we opting in for? If we're opting in for these kinds of things that really seem to be hurting our animals, then you're opting in for a whole train wreck of issues. So when I mention that, when I say, look at the deeper, and this is what I hope to teach ongoing for the rest of however long I can talk, opting in for, say, something like giving an ongoing heartworm medication or flea and tick, you are opting in for a philosophy that you have to put poison on or in your animal to protect them against parasites, whatever kind they are. When you're opting in for that, it's not just poisoning your dog and your children because they're petting them, or other animals that are licking them or playing with them, or the dogs that's sitting on your husband or your spouse's lap when you're watching TV. You're opting in for a whole philosophy that's related to the idea that you have to poison someone to protect them. And if you are opting in for that philosophy, you're also opting in for the companies that support the production of chemicals that poison things. And we know there are hundreds of thousands of chemicals out there that have never been tested singly, and never been tested even with multiple agents together. So we don't even know all of the causative factors, but what we do know is the level of chronic disease, say, for example, since 1965, especially right around there, has increased dramatically. And so has the use of chemicals of all sorts that we're exposed to, whether it's PFOAs on our Gore-Tex rain gear or in the water. Now they're finding high levels of PFOAs all over the water systems in the United States, polypharmacy everywhere in the water system, whether it's the bedding your dog is laying on or the couch your cat is sleeping on with flame retardants. You see, these are the things that you have to look at. I'm asking you, please, Look at this more thoroughly. And then if you decide that you need to do that, then think about it again and get on to some of these websites, get on and evaluate, what else can I look at? What else can I do? What else can I add to their food to make them so they're less susceptible, so that those parasites, like we were talking about yesterday, the terrain is not strong. And so any kind of parasite, virus, bacteria, whatever you want to call them, any kind of agent is going to set up residency, right? It's going to come in and say, oh, here's a nice warm place. I can come in here. So anytime you've got an invasion of parasites, fleas, ticks, whatever, take a look again and say, what can I clean up that can make this animal's terrain stronger? And once you do that, usually you're in the clear. You do routine testing if you want to. Say, for example, do it once a year. Usually I recommend that. Some places even recommend twice a year. That's up to you. But at least test. And then that way you will become more confident. I know that I have clients all over the country that never use any heartworm or flea and tick medication. Their animals are perfectly fine. So I hope I made my point clear there about going deeper into the understandings of what you're opting in for when you choose that kind of that's just an example. Okay, any other comments here? You want to pull up something for me, little guy behind the screen? Let animals and nature be your greatest teacher. They will never steer you wrong. Absolutely. Perfectly said. Perfectly said. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Okay. All right. Whatever. Yes, Florida is really an important test ground. And I do have a lot of clients in Florida. Atlanta, too. Oh my gosh. Chicago. Yeah. But again, it's not impossible. See, you're not really getting that. Okay, no parasite wants to kill its host because it dies too. Thank you, Dr. Suter. Yes, I love it. And you're in Chicago. You know this one. And I know you have plenty of clients who do not use heartworm, flea, tick, all of those kinds of things. I know you do. I guess I could say that the proof is most people don't, I'll look at that in a second, Isaac. Most people do not have the benefit, but all of you will hear, of watching hundreds and thousands of animals stay healthy or get healthy without better life through chemistry. And you absolutely have that now. What you should expect, the kind of dog or cat you should have. I wish I had a model here. You should expect a dog or a cat that has beautiful, silky, soft coat, unless it's a wire-haired terrier or something like that. But still, there's a quality of softness, shininess, not a lot of hair loss. Even if you have a dog that is non-shedding, or not a non-shedding, I should say, you should have not a lot of hair loss. The dogs that are shedding a tremendous amount all the time, that's a sign of chronic disease. You should have clear eyes, clear ears, no infections going on, no discharges, clean teeth. And if you need to brush them, that's okay too. We need to sometimes care for that. Really robust, the ability to move their muscles, to play, to jump, to whatever, have fun. The stools should be healthy, normal, twice a day. A dog that doesn't have stools every day, that's a sign of chronic illness. Can be corrected, but these are you should expect a dog or a cat to have that kind of robust outside visual health, because that's also a reflection of what's going on the inside. So when an animal comes in and they stink and they've got dandruff, and of course they're not feeling good on the inside. It's not just their skin that's toxic. It's because all that's coming out now in the skin. They should really really need, those poor animals need a whole workup and detox. But bless their hearts, you should expect with some work your animals to slowly, slowly, slowly improve to that kind of health. And if you've never experienced that because you've been on the track from day one, from the time they were 8 weeks old, you've been on the track, vaccines, neutering early, flea and tick, blah, 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 heartworm. You'll never experience that kind of thing. You may see a pretty robust, healthy animal for 2 or 3 years, but you'll start to see it decline. In fact, it used to be years ago, I could see animals get their first puppy vaccines, kitty vaccines, and then they might not show too much illness for 2 or 3 years. And now that's not the case. I see within 6 months, usually they're starting to show either skin symptoms or horrible ear conditions, or something that's telling me, no, it's not right here. We need to look at, what went on. The whole system is already disrupted. So, okay, what did you want to put up there, Isaac? There was somebody that made a comment. One of the favorite reasons to pay attention to where food is sourced before feeding it to your duck. Absolutely. And make sure you all listen to the conversation I had with Dr. Stephanie Seneff. She's a rock star. She's an amazing woman. I've been following her work on glyphosate for about 10 years. She's an MIT PhD, and she is spending the last 10 years of her life studying chronic health conditions and what causes them. And she's an electrical engineer, but that woman has more brain power than 20 people I know. And she's just this most generous, kind person. And I knew that she had done work on animal pet food, and she'd done some, and so I don't want to spoil it all, but you got to watch that one. But I wanted her to speak directly about glyphosate in food. And so if you need to listen to that one a couple of times, it's worth it because there is some science in there. And after you hear these things a couple of times, you'll get enough information to know what's really critical. But this is another of the ways that these chemical companies, Monsanto in particular, all over the world, poisoning people's food, poisoning the water, poisoning pretty much our bodies, everything. So this needs to stop. This is what I mean. If you opt in for certain products, you're opting in for those companies that are supporting the demise, not only of your animal, but of the planet. And I don't mean to sound so negative about it, but we got to be real. We got to really look at these things. And you women in particular, because there's mostly women here, although Bill, I know you're here. There's a lot of power you have because you tend to be the purchasers of products in the house. You're the ones that watch, the summit. You're the ones that do the learning. This is true. It doesn't matter if we're doing, I don't know, consciousness workshops or whatever, shamanic workshops, whatever, spiritual workshops. It's usually women that are there first. And anyway, the problem is that or I should say not the problem, but the beauty of it is that you have a lot more power than you think. So because you have your pocketbook and you can put your money to anywhere you choose, basically, the choices that you make there are really, really important. So know that every penny you spend, you want to be able to say, I want to support this local farmer who's not putting anything, who's grass-fed, grass-finished. I want to support, and I know it costs more money. I know it. And I just want to put a prayer to the universe that I have enough money to do this for my dog, because my dogs mean everything to me. My cats mean everything to me. So do not underestimate the power of your vote, of your money. Okay? It's really, really important. Okay. All right. What next here? Any other? So thank you so much for, oh, yeah. I better not go into that because that's kind of complicated, but it's a little bit of a complicated thing. Well, let me see if I can do that real quick because Odette, you made a comment. The Pottinger's cats is a study that was done many years ago, a 10-year study on kitty cats. It was actually an accident that had occurred. And you know what? I'm going to pass on that. Now that I realize, I'm just going to pass on it because I want to stay focused on our holistic thing. But you're absolutely right, Odette. This is a big experiment. Let's put it this way. And the demise, let me just say it in just succinct. The demise of our animals through time, because the food sources are so corrupted, that this is one of the other big things. I have really just a few things, and I just kept bringing it up in this holistic program with these different speakers. There's really only a few things. It's very simple to keep your animals healthy, to start them off healthy, or even to get them healthier, that you have to do. You absolutely have to. If you don't, you will never have that robust health, that healthy, strong, and vital animal. You will not have that. I promise you. You can be feeding fresh food and put toxic chemicals on them every month and vaccinate them once a year, and you're not going to see the kind of benefits that you want. You're just not. So if you have a dog that has chronic ailments and you're still getting them vaccinated and and I know this is controversial, I am going to do a whole big thing just on vaccines. And because I've studied it for 35 years, I feel like I have something to say about it. Obviously, you can tell. But really and truly, if you have an animal that has chronic disease already, say serious chronic disease, okay, maybe seizures or skin ailments or whatever, and you don't opt out of those things, do not expect, no matter how many drugs you use, no matter how many herbs you use or homeopathy, you will never get the benefit that you want. You will never see that. I'm sorry to say, but it's easy too to opt out of these things. Just get a little bit of education, a little bit of support, and you can do it. Okay, what else? Shall we? Yes, people, do your research. I agree. And DuckDuckGo, because Google is censoring. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So Willem says, any recommendations for treating cognitive dysfunction? My 11-year-old dog has all of the DISHA signs. And a lot of times, this is, again, one of these things that I think is related to, in particular, rabies vaccine. Because I think what happens I know what happens with rabies vaccine. It can cause inflammation in the brain and encephalitis. And so it can be real chronic, low grade, and you don't know it. And you go 11-year-old dog, well, they're always have, they're going to be cognitively declined. But there's also other things you can do. You can make sure to increase the essential oils, especially omega oils. I also tend to use phosphatidylcholine. You can get that in lecithin, fresh lecithin, not GMO. Usually I use sunflower, not soy, because all soy in this country has some sort of glyphosate because it's GMO. But you can get that at your health food store. You can order it online, and I have it in a more concentrated therapeutic form. But that's a good one. Also love lion's mane mushrooms. I use that a lot of my clients. And depending on the size of your dog, 1 or 2 of those capsules a day are great. Those are just a few things. So anyway, those are just a few things. Hopefully that helps you, William. All right. What else? What herb is the best to absorb proteins and reduce yeast, possibly IBD, colitis, and hold off meds? She's fed raw 13. Oh, gosh, already 13 months old. You see? Absorb proteins, reduce yeast, possible. Okay, so I already know your dog was vaccinated. And see, already only 13 months old, and she's already showing pretty serious colitis and IBD, and I'm really sorry about that. So first off, you've got to heal the gut, and there's a lot of different ways of doing that. You do need to work with a practitioner on this. This is not a quick fix because you're already seeing chronic disease in a 13-year-old dog. So, but if you heal the gut and decrease inflammation and the healing of what we call the crypts, which are in the gut, then they will be available to absorb. They won't be swollen, and they'll be able to absorb the nutrients. So you don't have to like do an herb or that kind of thing. Now you may need to do something like nettles, or I use products that have like marshmallow, aloe, even some glutamine, which is an amino acid, to help cool and calm the inflammation in the gut. And often that can make a big difference right there. And if she isn't having any troubles with particular proteins, you might have to eliminate those now for a while, maybe not forever. I don't like to eliminate things forever. I like to just, like, if we know what's bugging her the most, say chicken or beef, it's usually one of those two, then eliminate them for a while and then get her back on track. There's a lot of other products. Colostrum is a really good one. There's some products. I have a colostrum that's kind of a unique one. Those kind of things can all be supportive to the gut. And if you're working with the dog with this, I'd make sure that you're working with a holistic vet, somebody who can really help. Hey, Odette, you up for it? I agree. She's got some immune issues. Okay, what else? Here, conflicting info on essential oils, even which are safer for dogs like peppermint, if at all. A vet said a recent report found essential oils are toxic. Stay away from them. Yeah, you know, I'm not a big user of essential oils because I'm a homeopath. So because they can antidote homeopathic remedies, I tend not to recommend them while I'm on the treatment, while my patients are on treatment. But Rita Hogan, which I hope you saw today, she uses some essential oils. In fact, she made some really good products with her company prior. And there are a lot of vets actually that are using essential oils. The caveat I have on that, sometimes the essential oils are not always good quality. And because our dogs and our cats, a large part of their brain is responsible for olfaction, whereas for humans, a small part of our brain. So in the process of evolution, we got a bigger frontal lobe so that we can talk and think and have those kind of front brain functions. But their brain still has a large part for vision, large part for olfaction, and even instinct. So I think you have to be very careful when you're using essential oils. I have seen dogs react to lavender, and a lot of people like to do it. I agree. No oils on cats. And they're kind of like I am, just like, oh my gosh, everything, that smells too strong affects me. But I would just be cautious on that and make sure that if you're using something, it's very limited, not in a diffuser, constant all day long, that kind of thing. Just on very limited, work with a practitioner and use it in a medicinal way. Let's put it that way. Okay. What other kind of question do we got? We have a few more minutes. Oh, I see something I want to answer. The CBD ever an option for inflammation and healing? Yes, absolutely. And hopefully the conversation with Dr. Wagner, you heard that there's a lot of practitioners now that are studying, a lot of veterinarians now studying and using, and are experts really in the cannabinoid system. There's difficulties with that because of the legislation, as I spoke with Dr. Wagner, I believe I did in that conversation. And so you have to definitely find somebody who's willing to talk with you about it, but love CBD. CBG is becoming a really big isolate. So there's a lot of great information out there now where it's starting to grow. We're trying to figure out how CBG as an isolate of the cannabinoids can be helpful in whatever different kinds of ways. Right now, I'm using it on seizure cases. So, anyway, yes, love CBD. It can be fantastic for inflammation. Okay. What was the other one, Isaac? I'm sorry, I missed that one. Being that there's an outbreak of highly pathogenic avian influenza, can it negatively affect dogs who eat chicken, quail, and other bird meat? Actually, I didn't know there was an outbreak of highly pathogenic. See, we're just gonna up the game, the fear game, aren't we? And if we keep doing that, you see, I'm going to just put myself out here. We are creating this in our consciousness. I'm not saying there aren't bugs out there that can harm you, but the more energy you put into something, the more it's going to grow. If you put love into your relationships, love's going to grow. If you put fear into your relationships, fear is going to grow. If you put fear and into that consciousness of whatever highly pathogenic avian flu, actually, I did hear something about it, but I kind of dismissed it, frankly, then that's going to grow. And if you're worried about that, then I'm not sure how you're going to protect yourself from every other thing in the world. This is not, if we didn't learn that with the COVID syndrome, I'm not sure what. Look at how, the isolates, the isolation, the lockdowns, we've destroyed people's lives because of this cold I got. So I'm not saying that there weren't people that died. It wasn't ill. Please, I am not so ignorant about that. I don't want any comments that, oh yeah, but you didn't lose family members. I did, but I lost family members to vaccines too. And so we have to think about, this is our responsibility to look at if there's a highly pathogenic avian flu, where did that come out of? Did it come out of the factory farming CAFCO operations? Is that where that's happening from? Did it come out of our invasion into their environment, or the overproduction of these poor animals in these horrid, cruel situations? And now we have mega viruses. This is how I want you to be thinking. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just saying, do not get stuck on, okay, now the news media is telling you about this horrible thing that's going around, so now you have to go in and get another vaccine. And this is absolutely, these things are around and you're going to be exposed to them. And if you don't like it, you probably better just live isolated, or you're sunk. That's it. Okay, next. All natural does not mean safe. Homeopathy is the 100% no side effect medicine, but even with that, you can suppress. I totally agree with you. And it's safe. It's safe because there's no toxic substances in any of the homeopathic remedies. So you're right. It's absolutely safe. But it can cause severe reactions if you've had in particular, if you've had suppressive medications for a condition that have been kind of hidden down, they become latent now, and then you can give a medication that brings them out. That can cause an aggravation that can be scary, dangerous, and harmful, I guess I could say. So yeah, this is where, if you're treating chronic disease, it's best to work with somebody who's kind of worked with that for years. But absolutely, you're right about that. That's one of the reasons I love it. One of the other reasons I love about homeopathy, I have a list going someplace or another. It's such an elegant form of medicine. It actually has principles. Allopathy does not have principles. There are actual principles of homeopathy of like cures life, cures life, the minimum dose, and the least frequent dosing. And if you ask an allopathic physician, what are the principles of allopathy? And they'd say, well, to fix people, to fix dogs? I don't know. There are none. I know. I went to medical school. There are none. And because of that, it's the one mind there is again, you got a symptom, you got to get rid of it. That's it. Whatever that is. Now, sometimes you have to do that if you're really in a dangerous situation in ICU and you need those antibiotics for that horrible pneumonia or whatever. You've got to do that. But otherwise, anyway, back to my reasoning. The other thing I love about homeopathy, you don't have to rape and pillage the Amazon rainforest. You don't have to harm. You don't have to do testing. You don't have to do research and testing and harm animals or little children or anything. You don't have to test on humans. Although the way that the homeopaths did test the homeopathic remedies were on what we call provers. They were healthy people who agreed to take minute doses of the remedies, and then they documented over the course of days the symptoms that came up. And that's how we were able to see very clearly how to use remedies in particular. And this is extended now. Homeopaths do provings all the time. But the other way they got information, say, for example, there was a lot of use of silver, so a lot of use of mercury, and they would have people drink these things to cure syphilis and to cure other diseases. And so we know what happened with these people that, their syphilis was cured, but we have their teeth fell out, they went mad as a hatter, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we have lots of history, 200 years history of those medications. So we don't get designer drugs in homeopathy. They do, again, homeopaths are always testing new things, but the old medicines are there. They're tried and true. And you never run out. That's another thing I love about it. There's never a minimum. You're never going to lose any remedy, because you can always graft on from one before. And that's just so beautiful. We have remedies that start back from 200 years ago that are still making medicines for our homeopathic supplies now. So all of those beautiful things. Okay, next question. Tremelia. I'm not a big expert in Tremelia, but I know a little bit about it, and I have a little bit on it on my website. You're welcome to look at that blog on mushrooms. And it's not one I can tell you I've used a lot. So I can't tell you I've got 50 cases of Tremelia, where the other mushrooms I've used for many years, and I feel good about those. And Tremelia can be helpful for GI symptoms. But remember, let me just tell you generally about mushrooms. Mushrooms are such a powerful source of food, and they're really big right now. Thank goodness that they've got their day in the sun. They are such a medicine we need right now, because their ability to nourish us and to provide they're so grounding. Their energy is so grounding and so healing at that kind of, because they come from the roots, right? And although they often are attached to the trees, there's such how can I say this? A powerful way of connecting with the plant world that provides these beta glucans, which are really powerful immune supporters, immune stimulants, but immune supporters, and they're also immune balancers. So I love them even as an ongoing, not necessarily even treating something, but even using them as ongoing food, just food to put in your dog's food every day, or your cats like them too. So just think about that. You can use, like I mentioned, lion's mane before. You can use turkey tail if there's maybe a cancer growth. But all of the mushrooms, because they're high in beta glucans, they're really useful for any kind of immune support, and actually really useful for cancer. So all of them. Now, specific ones tend to be like turkey tail. Very anti-inflammatory, and again, just powerful root energy. I love that, because it just reminds me of the spleen, the stomach spleen meridian, just helping to nourish the body that way. Okay. Last question, Isaac says. All right. What have you got? Let's see. At what point would you say an infection warrants conventional antibiotics versus natural ones? And how can they be avoided for things like infection if you don't have a holistic vet? Again, I think that you really have to consider how sick the animal is. Not how old the animal is, but how sick the animal is. If you've got a really life-threatening situation and you need to save that animal's life, this is ICU stuff, then you need to use antibiotics. That's what they're there for. Don't feel like you've been defeated. Don't feel like, that's what you save them for. If your cat has an abscess or your dog has an ear infection, you might not choose to do that. You might want to look at these more natural things. And there are some natural topical antibiotics, usually herbal preparations that you can use for a lot of these. But if it's a systemic infection, your dog has serious infection, is needed to be hospitalized, then you approve those antibiotics. You need to do that. But again, there's so many wonderful things now that we can use for infections. And remember, the infection is only there because there was a weakness to begin with. So you want to do things also to support the overall immune system. You want to make sure, again, we go back to diet, make sure that that's really clean. But mushrooms are a fantastic way to support immune health. I love it. I don't even know what to say. Echinacea, golden seal, those are two of my favorites too. I have a product from a company, it's a human company called Biocidin, and she's done an amazing job of doing a combination of, and they've actually done some research studies too, combination of some herbs. And it's beautiful. It's got echinacea in there, but it's got other things too. And just love that we have these wonderful herbs available, and homeopathy. If you don't have to go down that path of antibiotics, just hold off. What you might want to do if your vet says you need to use these, if they're not expensive, you might want to take them home and have them so that you feel good about it, that you have backup. So if something comes up and you need to use them, okay. And the other thing I've noticed is often you can use antibiotics for 2 or 3 days. If there's something going on that you just need to kind of knock down those bacteria, you can use them for 2 or 3 days. Don't worry. I know everybody's already going, oh, but you have to give them for 10 days, blah, blah, blah. Not necessarily. And that's when we run into trouble with affecting the microbiome, is when we get longer. But if you can just knock down the bacteria a little bit, because your animal's not able to fight enough, muster enough energy to knock them down, then you can start with the antibiotics, or at the same time, do those mushrooms, do those herbs, and then give yourself a little bit of space. Use antibiotics for 2 or 3 days. Usually you don't have to worry then about disruption to the microbiome too much. And then just continue with all of your other support, the herbs, the homeopathy, whatever. Often I've seen that work many, many, many times. So there you go. I hope that helped. All right. So I think we're at the end. So let me just go over tomorrow. Tomorrow, oh yes, it's planetary medicine and holistic philosophy. So my first conversation was with my teacher and mentor and friend, Dr. Richard Picarin. So he's, as many of you know who he is, and I hope you do have his book. It's a great book to have on your shelf as a reference book. So we tried to cover a lot of ground there, but it's never enough time. Anyway, Dr. Alan Schoen is on, and he's a dear friend of mine for many, many years. He has a very interesting thing that I just was very fascinated. Now, he's been, a teacher around the world for integrative medicine, and has written 2 textbooks on it, and something like 7 other books, something like that. And now in his retirement from practice, he has sort of, he says he just got it in a dream, this idea of what he calls calm, or the conscious animal lovers movement. And I love that. He's looking for ambassadors. And so we discussed that, but we also talked about his vast experience, oh my gosh, of many, many, many years. And it's profound. It's profound, his touch around the world to veterinarians, primarily veterinarians, but also he was in clinical practice. So you'll want to hear that conversation. And Dr. Margot Roman, many of you know Margot, and she's the expert in ozone and microbiome restorative therapies. She's a dear, but we did talk about other things. And it's interesting. Her story is very interesting. I was fascinated by that. Anyway, and Greg Tilford, I love Greg's products. I've been using his products, Animal Essentials, for many years. But he's quite a philosopher. And, we just kept going round and round about his journey in the world of herbalism. And I find him a profound teacher, a deep thinker, and I really wanted him to be on here to share some of that knowledge with you all. So I hope you all, if you haven't heard everything else, the rest of today, it'll also be on, 48 hours. The beauty of the way they're doing this summit is you get to listen to them for 48 hours, not 24 hours. So I am really delighted. Let's see, what else do I need to tell you? I guess that's it. I will see you all here again tomorrow at the same time. That's 3:00 Eastern. To all my friends and people I could not get to answer all the questions. I'm sorry. I'll put them in the Facebook. I'll try to answer them there, or Odette will answer them. She has nothing else to do, right, Odette? And yes, I'm really glad this is jam-packed with goodies. You'll keep up. Don't worry, Carol, you'll get it. But I'm glad you're here. So many blessings to you all. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you so much for being here.